The Coach Curl podcast is brought to you by Think and Grow Business, the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul, I see you. All right, John, finish on. Coach Carl.
Great job, guys. Coach Carl, we love you!
Hey there, it's Tony here, and welcome to episode 97 of the Coach Curl podcast. Today I'm talking about this amazing statistic that the New York Marathon achieves this year, and especially history was made this year on November 4 when 99.4% of the starters who started the New York Marathon completed it. Now, I want you to really think about this. Just 309 of the 53,121 starters failed to finish. 309 out of 53,000 failed to finish. Now, that's an incredible stat. And it's an incredible stat of success. And for those that set the goal to run the race. So this year, my wife and I were two of the 52,812 finishers. An achievement that for us was 12 months in the making, and one that created an enormous amount of satisfaction for us both. And if you've been following the New York Marathon series here in the Coach Curl podcast, you know I've spoken about my experiences. I've interviewed two amazing people in Dan Owens and Melissa Urey. And on our last episode, I talked about some of the extraordinary people that I met with huge smiles and huge satisfaction achieving their goals of running the New York Marathon. And when you set a goal to run the marathon, you obviously understand there's going to be roadblocks. It's never smooth sailing. There's always obstacles. And you're constantly battling niggles and injury. And the injuries may stop maybe the majority of people even running a 5K race, let alone a 42-kilometre test of endurance. So every runner has a story. And the reality for us is that we really risked injury, further aggravating our injuries. But we finished the race. And so the compelling reason for us was really clear. We'd set it as a goal and we'd worked really hard to achieve it. But let's look at what I see now is some of the reasons behind this enormous success that the New York Marathon achieves. Now, firstly, it's an extraordinary goal. Now, let's face it, not everyone wants to run a marathon. In fact, less than 1% of the adult population will ever complete a marathon. And being 100% transparent, I was one of those 99% just over 12 months ago. I never thought that I would want to run a marathon, let alone run a marathon. But the challenge of doing something that was a test really challenged me and became a bit of an obsession, I guess. Now, it's a growing trend for, and I'll use inverted commas, ordinary folk to set goals outside their comfort zone. You know, for many people, we live lives that we've settled for, where we're working a 9-to-5 grind, which may or may not suit us, in a job that we may or may not love. So sometimes the only things that some people will put into is achieving bucket list goals. So for many, it's a growing trend for people to set the New York Marathon as a bit of a bucket list. Now, those statistics obviously have been evolving over time, and you can see that in some of the stats in and around the New York Marathon. And instead of the average time of all finishes reducing over time, it's actually increasing. So we're seeing things like marathon tourism become a thing. You know, so as more and more people, more and more ordinary folk set the goal of doing something outside their comfort zone. So it's an extraordinary goal. The more extraordinary the goal is, the more effort and commitment that people traditionally put towards it. And this separates the committed people to the interested people. Those interested or only interested won't even make it to the starting line, let alone finish and complete it. But I guess that's the beauty of it. You know, to finish a marathon is an extraordinary feat, and every runner has a story. You know, the story of Bob Wieland, he's completed 6 marathons, an accomplishment for anyone. But Bob completes them on his hands after losing his legs in Vietnam. Now, he completed his first New York City Marathon in 1986, and he took 98 hours. But in a post-race interview, he famously said, "I finished ahead of the 300 million Americans who never even started." So everyone who completes a marathon always has the satisfaction of beating the 99% of the population who simply didn't even enter. So it's an extraordinary goal. So that's number one in the list of why it's so successful. It's an extraordinary goal. Second thing is, not everyone can do it. So even if it was a goal for everyone, the reality is not everyone can do it. 53,000 people this year started the course. And when you think about the population of America, when you think about the population globally, that's a very select group of people. And just to give you an idea of how hard it is to get in, once you've committed to doing the extraordinary, so once you've set that as a goal, the next stage is your first test to determine whether you're committed or whether you're interested. Now, if you're in New York, and I believe it's only New York. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. It may be US, but I believe it's New York. People go into a raffle type lottery ballot system to gain what they call non-guarantee. It's a non-guaranteed draw to compete in the race. Now, this year there was over 105,000 people that entered that draw. So that was 105,000 people who had set in America who had set the extraordinary goal to complete the New York Marathon. And they go into this lottery process. But out of that lottery process, only 15,640, the actual number, are offered a place in the race. Now, that's less than a 15% acceptance rate. So even if you wanted to do it and you're an American or a New York-based runner, the reality is you've got a 15% acceptance chance and to make the race. So those 15,640 are admitted to the lottery. But that leaves over, you do the sums. There was 53,000 starters this year. So it leaves, 35,000 through guaranteed methods to make up the remainder of the field. So even if you just wanted to rock up for the day, you can't. Security is actually really tough along the course as well. We saw a guy without a race number get thrown off, I believe it was the Pulaski Bridge in Queens. He joined the run to take photos of his friends, but he was very quickly removed by security. So entry is limited and selective. But it really doesn't end there. So that's number 2. Not everyone can do it. Number 3 is to get to the starting line requires investment. So, and I'm not just talking about the training aspect. Okay, the training aspect here. There are marathon training plans out there for experienced runners that can get you ready to run a marathon in anywhere from 12 to 13 weeks. We know that they exist. And they're out there. And if you're an experienced runner, you still need to put in 12 to 13 weeks of training. Now, I know that there's a number of YouTube videos out there where people run half marathons or marathons without any training. I'd probably advise against that, just quietly. I think it's a bit dumb. Obviously, it's entertainment. But you risk really bad damage to yourself. I mean, when you're running a marathon and from a basic survival mode. So, But so the first aspect here is the training and the regiment that's required around that. But also, to get to the starting line requires investment on many fronts. So, for example, you can run for charity. So if you've missed that non-guaranteed draw in the US, you can run for charity. Now, there are spots available for those that raise a set amount of funds for the New York Roadrunners Team for Kids program. And I believe there's other charities that may be endorsed by the New York Roadrunners. But entry is guaranteed, and the set amount is you have to raise a set amount to run. So in the case of the 2019 marathon, entrants are guaranteed to raise $2,620. Okay, $2,620. So once again, starting line requires an investment to get even to the start. You've invested in training and potentially invested in raising funds for a charity. Now, international visitors can gain a guaranteed entry by paying through a designated travel company, but be prepared. There's an investment here. It's, I know from my personal aspect, it was $2.5K. So once again, in line with what you've got to raise for charity. $2.5K plus, and that doesn't include airfares, so, the reality is that there's an investment in dollars. Now, if you're an active member of the New York Road Runners Club, you can achieve entry by participating and completing 9 endorsed races during the year and volunteering in others. Now, if you love running and love being involved, that may not seem like a chore at all. But ultimately, you need to plan that because you need to do that before you go into the entry times for the New York Marathon. You do have the option, instead of volunteering, to donate once again, but once again, there's an investment. Interestingly enough, if you've completed 15 New York City marathons, you also have guaranteed entry. So can I tell you, that's an investment. That is an investment. If you're going to have run 15 New York marathons, I would say you deserve entry each and every year. So, and also there's qualifying times that you can hit that will guarantee you entry, because they obviously want elite runners to be running an elite event. Now, when you're lining up at the starting village, every single runner is acutely aware of the investment that they have made to get to where it is, whether it's training, whether it's raising funds for charity, whether it's paying for it through tourism. So you are painfully aware. People talk about trust your training because of the level of training that you need to do. So when you're lining up at Staten Island, all runners are acutely aware of the investment that they've made. And knowing what it took to get there helps you plot through the pain and progress through to complete the run. So step number 3, investment. You have to invest. And, John Maxwell talks about the law of sacrifice, exactly the same thing. What is it that you will sacrifice to achieve what it is that you're going to do? So to get to the starting line requires sacrifice, whether it's training, whether it's, raising funds, or whether it's forking out some of your hard-earned money to get over there. The reality is that it's an investment. Number 4, the environment. The environment plays a huge role. The marathon engulfs the city. And the week leading into the marathon, the city is just overrun with runners. Whenever we got into a lift, there were runners. Whenever you walk through Central Park, there were runners. There were runners. And on Sunday, you can just feel the anticipation, the excitement building as the city moves towards Sunday. And on Sunday, it simply erupts. Now, the route of the marathon is lined with millions of people. And they're all participating. They're active participants in this event. They're celebrating the event. They're celebrating the runners. I've mentioned before, it was amazing the amount of people who thanked us for being there. They saw the Australian shirts and thanked us for being there. It's colourful, it's loud, it's sustained frenzy. There's funny signs, there's encouraging words. You can hear some of the atmosphere in the lead up now. I've put it into our intro music for the Coach Girl podcast. It's sustained frenzy. I love that. You cannot help but get caught up in that. You know, the first 12 miles of the race, we ran into our family and our friends. And 12 miles, what's that? Just under 20 kilometres. And all of a sudden, we suddenly realise we've just run 20 kilometres. Now, 20 kilometres is a big race, a big run in most people's language. But when you're in a marathon, it's only part of the way, of course. But you normally are relatively not fresh when you've run 20 kilometres. So, you know, the reality was that we were, because we were just so caught up, you know. In the last episode, I talked about the huge smiles and the huge achievements of runners. You smile, you laugh, you share your story. It's this shared commitment, the crowds, the runners, we're all in this together. And so, of course, the environment plays its part. You know, and on top of that, you've got things like the cheer cards that you've got people at home that are sending them through on the New York Runners app. And as we saw the power of that when we came into Central Park for the first time. Our photo suddenly flashes up there on the cheer card digital bulletin. It gives you a little bit of a lift. The tracker technology on the app is amazing, because at mile 22 I got a text from a colleague of mine here in Brisbane who said, mile 22, Curly, you got this, just 4 miles to go. Pretty cool. Entering New York, Central Park for the second time. So you enter it once, you come back out, I think it's 57th Street, you go down. For the final time, there were messages coming through from people that I knew in Brisbane who were tracking us on the app. So as well as being engulfed by this amazing experience of the crowds, the reality was that people around the world share your success. And even up until the weekend, we still had people that we didn't even know were tracking us on the app, or that we only knew as an acquaintance. But they got caught up in the journey, and they were sharing their story of their excitement of watching us complete the New York Marathon. So the environment is a huge part. It's absolutely a huge part. Now, there's a mantra, and so the environment step forward. The mantra of the marathon is a really simple one, I guess, when you start talking to runners. And they talk about things like trust your training, and every step forward is a step closer. And so that's another mantra that is really part of the reasons why this is the marathon itself is so successful. So, and once again, we saw that. I experienced that firsthand coming down Queensborough Bridge. I came in to the race with some injuries that I would have preferred not to have had. And I really, really suggested to myself that if I can get over the Verrazano Bridge, I'm going to be okay. Now, I fully expected to have this mantra in the back of my mind coming over after re-injuring myself doing the bridge. But ultimately, my calves held good. It was my knee that played up. And coming out down the Queensborough Bridge, coming into First Avenue, now you hear about First Avenue. It's like a roar, and you could sense it. But as the excitement was picking up, and as I guess my pace sort of picked up a little bit too, because you just want to get down there into First Avenue, I felt this really sharp shift in the kneecap. It was like a shift. And that was one of the dramas that I'd had with my knee, and I was holding in place through strapping and a brace. So once we got that all sorted out, we de-strapped and just put the brace on just to give it a little less rigid structure, I guess, more so than anything, and allowed the kneecap to pop back into place. But that mantra really stuck forward. It was every step forward is a step closer. So coming into Manhattan, that was my mantra. Every step forward is a step closer. Put your feet in front of the other, one step at a time. It's really simple. And we heard it just about from everyone. The New York Runners coach that took us on our bus tour of the course, we heard it from Colin Sampson from the Indigenous. We heard it from Robert D. Costello. One foot in front of the other, and you'll ultimately get to the finish line. So absolutely, it's part of the reason why the New York Marathon enjoys the success that it does. Now, the other couple of things that I've picked up in relation to why is it so successful. Sorry, I'll just step back a bit. That one step at a time was evidence right throughout the marathon. The husband and wife that was coming down Fifth Avenue, and the husband's just crippled with cramp. You could just, I've never seen calf muscles do the things that this guy's calf muscles were doing, and the wife was trying to hold him up, but seriously, they were down to that mantra of one step forward, step by step. And you could see it, and they were the most visual, but we saw it everywhere, right throughout. So one step at a time gets you closer. Now, the other one that really stands out, in 2016, a guy called Richard Jolly severely hurt his knee at mile 16, and that's in First Avenue. Now, he's rang his girlfriends. I think Richard was from Brooklyn, or, he was from New York. He rang his girlfriend to come and help because he'd basically given up. He said he can't do it. As he sat down, he cursed, he cried for 25 minutes. Now, his girlfriend, he realised his girlfriend was painfully lost. So he got back up and he started the slow process to Central Park. And his hobbling finish is recorded for Prosperity on a post on the ABC 7 news site. So, and it brings me to my next point, because the final finishes program is something that is also an amazing aspect around why this success exists. So there's a cut-off time for timing of the event, from what I understand, but every runner is allowed to finish. And it all started with Peter Chauci, the race event director, and his mantra has always been, I don't leave the finish line till all runners are finished. And over time, this has built up. Elite runners come back at 7:30. And we even had people in our Travelling Fit Australia group that were going down at 7:30 to support the final runners. So recognition of everyone that completes the race, and I've said it many times, every person has a story. Every runner running the New York Marathon is doing it for a reason. So this final finisher program that recognises and still rewards those final finishers, and they get a medal for it, and they get the whole volunteers stay back. It's an amazing program. It's sensational. But it's recognising effort, not just recognising like the best. And in many ways, the final finishers get it tougher than most other people, because coming down like those like they start dismantling the course from about 5:30 p.m. They start opening roads up. So these people, the final finishers, if you're coming in at 7:30, I think the last one came in this year at 12 minutes past 8. I might be wrong, but it was after 8 o'clock. So they're running on roads or footpaths that are reopened to the public, right? They're missing out that environment aspect, which is, part of one of the main reasons for the success of the people running the marathon. They're doing it solely for themselves, for whatever reason, whatever story that is. And they deserve to be recognised. So when we think about that in terms of your organisation, in terms of the teams that you lead, what does that look like? So what is the outcome? Do you just, if your company achieves an outcome, for example, that everyone has put effort into getting, or if your team has achieved an outcome, do you just reward the best players? Just something to ponder. And because the final finishes program is certainly part of the reason why people finish the New York Marathon. So, and it's that recognition of all finishes. And in fact, even more so, it's more personal, I guess, for those people that are coming in late, because the runners are less. Like when we crossed the line, there was probably within a 10-second window, there's like 20 or 30 people. When someone's coming in late, they're either somehow formed a group that they've gathered over the course, but potentially they're coming in by themselves, and they're seeing the elite runners, powerful. Powerful program. So absolutely part of the reasons. Now, the last two, trust your training, putting in the work to get to where you're going is another mantra that's part of the reason for the success. But also, expectations drive results. So I want you to think about that one. Expectations drive results. There is an expectation that you'll complete the marathon. Hence the reason why all of this has sort of formulated, and some of it I would imagine intentionally, but other has evolved quite naturally. There is an expectation that the marathon has a high success rate. So when you're lining up, you know the investment, but you also know the expectation. And it's part of it, it's very much a part of the reason why. Hey, look, that's the reasons why I believe the New York Marathon has the huge, amazing success rate that it does. Number one, it's an extraordinary goal. Number two, not everyone can do it. Number three, to get to the starting line requires investment. Number four, the environment plays its part. Number five, every step forward is a step closer. Number 6 is the final finisher program. And number 7 is expectations drive results. Next week, I'm going to, in our next episode, I'm going to share with you how we can apply those 7 things into our life. Could you imagine if everything you started, you had a 99.4% success rate? Wouldn't that be awesome? Absolutely. So next week, let's talk about that. Hey, look, it's Tony here. Thanks for listening today. A big shout out to the team at Think and Grow Business. As always, if it wasn't for Think and Grow Business, this podcast simply just wouldn't exist. We strengthen the leadership mindset and business of people. We improve the performance of people in business, strengthening leadership mindset and business. A fantastic company. Check it out at thinkandgrowbusiness.com. Don't forget, seriously simple stuff to get you unstuck. Available at all good bookshops online, and also available in hard copy at tonycurl.com.au if you're wanting your own assigned copy. 20% of every book sold goes to support our chosen non-for-profit, which is Carter's Cause here in Australia, carterscause.org.au, that do some great work supporting Heart Kids Australia. Now, don't forget, if you really are looking at making 2019 your very best year, check out the Coach Curl Academy. We've got over 60 programs in there now that are there. Once again, leadership, mindset, and business. It's all there to help you become more aware, more knowledgeable, more skilled in the application of what it is that you're chasing in your life. So check out the Coach Curl Academy. Our prices rise the 1st of January in 2019. So we go into the second page of our launch. So our foundation members' launch pricing ceases at midnight on the 31st of December. So if you are keen, get in there now. Get in there now and lock in those prices for the next 2 years. Hey, as per always, don't forget the golden rule. There is a golden rule, and it's don't be an arsehole. Until next time, I'll see you then.